Hello, Assalamu alaikum, to our fourth Artist Talk session. And we are very glad that Dr. Saadia is here with us on this talk session. Um First of all, I would like to briefly talk about that what kind of educational background Saadia has, which is very interesting actually, because she did her bachelor's in applied psychology and English literature from Connect College. She also did her bachelor's from NCA in design, and she did it with distinction. And afterwards, she did her MEd in communication from Columbia University. And then she also did her master's in communication study. Was it communication studies from New York Institute of Technology? So she did double bachelor's and double master's, and then she did her PhD degree in psychology from Columbia University, New York. And she has a very long career, like 25 years long career, in which she has worked as an educationist as well as a design and media practitioner. She has worked both in New York and Pakistan. She has taught at NC as well, and she has taught at Columbia University as well. She used to teach psychology and education over there. And at the moment, she is a CEO of London Socrates, which is an edtech firm in California, Silicon Valley. So that is very interesting educational background. You have like learned a lot basically. So I would be asking you that how much all that education, like as a psychologist, as a designer, and educationist, like how did that inform your practice, both as an educationist and as a designer, and both in Pakistan and in New York? Yeah, over to you, Saadia.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me, and assalamu alaikum to everyone in your class. I can see almost everyone. It's lovely to be here this morning. That is a very wide question.
Exactly.
So let me try to address that the best I can. And then everyone in your class, all the students are welcome to ask me any questions that they would like to ask. Okay?
Okay.
First of all, I'm very aware of the fact that it's an all-female class. And we have to also keep in mind the fact that, as you said, I'm the CEO of London Socrates LLC in California's Silicon Valley. That's where everything is coming from nowadays, right? All the high-tech stuff, all the innovation in technology, all the great design work that's happening is coming from Silicon Valley. Everyone there is leading. But there is a dearth, as in बहुत ज़्यादा कमी है, of females in the field. And females, Pakistaniyon ko to aap chhod do, all kinds of females, right? From any background. And there are very few CEOs who are females or females who are in leading positions in Silicon Valley. So my journey is basically, as you said, starts from Lahore. I was born and raised in Lahore, totally Lahori, not an Angrez.
Exactly.
And I think because of that, I have been able to actually reach where I am right now. So being a Pakistani, being a Lahori, being from this country, and the kind of education that you get, the kind of foundations that you get here, they are very strong. And they go with you a long way. So, I mean, I went to school, the best school at that time. अब तो यहाँ पे बहुत अच्छे schools और भी हो गए हैं, the Convent of Jesus and Mary. And I think my schooling had a lot to do with giving me self-confidence, developing a sense of self, who you are. Also, a lot of character building was taking place,
Exactly.
which was very important. So the kind of education where it's not just all about books, it's not all about collecting degrees. मतलब अगर आप जैसे बता रहे हैं पूरी लिस्ट है कि 2 BAs हैं और 2 masters हैं और right. So it was never for me to collect all these degrees or, these awards and stuff. It was always about, well, what can I learn next? So I was born into a home where it was full of educators. So starting from my mother's father, and we all used to live together. So my mother's father was Dr. Yasin Khan Niazi, and he was the first Niazi. Can you imagine at that time?
Okay.
British times, right? Slave
Oh.
time. So he was the first Niazi to actually get a PhD. Usse
Wow,
pehle,
mashallah.
Niazi clan was famous for other things, not for education.
Yeah,
From the
exactly.
So he was so well known and so well respected as a man of principle and as a great educator of his time. And this was before the internet, before social media. So you won't really find all that paper trail or trail on the internet, which you can just go look him up. Mostly, it's just maybe me talking about him, right? Most of the time.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so he got his PhD from Punjab University at that time. And his thesis is still there. So his PhD was in Persian. Now, he had 2 masters at that time. So
Okay.
he had
So that is coming from there.
so a lot of my inspiration and
It's
my
in
love
your
for
genes.
huh, it's my genes and it's also learned, right? Learned behavior, jisko kehte hain in psychology.
Exactly, exactly.
So he had a master's in Urdu, and he had a master's in Persian, and then he went on for a PhD. And he basically was a pivotal role, and he played a central role in my upbringing, my rearing, because I used to spend a lot of time with him. So he used to head the Board of Education in Lahore. Then after retirement, he was requested to head the Board of Sargodha. So he was heading that. Then he was also, after retirement, asked to become the principal of Dayal Singh College. If you remember, that used to be near NCA, right?
Uh,
And हमेशा वहाँ दंगे और ये सारा कुछ होता
exactly.
हाँ तो क्योंकि वो बहुत civilized educator थे with a PhD, but वो साथ न्याजी भी थे, तो वो रोज
Exactly,
आते था
mashallah.
तो सारे लड़के थे वो उन्होंने वहाँ पे बहुत अच्छी तरह उनको सिर्फ कंट्रोल नहीं किया, उनको रिफॉर्म किया बहुत सारों को. So much so that many years later, when I returned and visited his grave in New Garden Town where we used to live, वहीं करीब में उनको bury किया था. तो वहाँ पर एक बूढ़े से अंकल आए, तब मैं छोटी थी इसलिए मैं उनको बूढ़े अंकल कह सकती हूँ. अंकल आए और उनके साथ कुछ लड़के थे, उनके बेटे थे. तो मैं फातिहा पढ़ रही थी, तो ही आस्क्ड मी कि आप यहाँ पे फातिहा पढ़ रही हैं, तो आप इनको कैसे जानती हैं डॉक्टर साहब को? So I said, well, he's my grandfather. That's why I'm here. The guy was, I cannot explain. He was so emotional. He said, this Dr. Niazi ne meri puri life बनाई है, and I make sure that I bring my sons over और हम सब यहाँ आके इनकी regularly फातिहा पढ़ते हैं. Now that for me is a true educator who
Exactly.
not only just goes to class, delivers a lecture, walks away, never remembers his students, but does something for them so that unki life bane, right? And teaches them those life skills so that they can do something. And it was an amazing experience for me. And at that time, I was already into education. And, I was already making all those efforts that, he had taught me to make for my students, for everybody else. So he really inspired me in pursuing lifelong learning, and that's what I am, a lifelong learner. Because if you see my career, if you see the kinds of different programs that I enrolled in, and then it wasn't just one thing. Like for example, I was born an artist. I don't know if that's a gift, या कि एक मुसीबत है, but if you're born an artist, you cannot stop yourself. right?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
when I was little, I used to draw all over, and I'm sure लोगों के बच्चे होंगे. If they are like that, please do encourage them. I used to
Hmm.
draw on walls, on the floor. I mean, any place that I could find, anything that I could find, a chalk, a crayon, a pencil. So I was finally given a room, and I was told, here are colored chalks, keep drawing,
Hmm.
and erase them, make new murals. So
Hmm.
that's what I had to do. So it was a
Hmm.
given for me that I would pursue art,
Exactly.
and nothing else, right? And that was totally inherited because my mother was a very good artist.
Hmm. Mashallah.
She was also a psychologist. So I'm giving everybody a background so that
Ah,
it's very
hmm.
important where you come from, right?
Exactly.
It's not just the fact that, well, you say, well, I can divorce myself or I can separate myself from my family background. It can be a good background, not a not so good background, and we'll discuss that more as we go along. But
Hmm.
the thing is, my mother never went to art school. She never had any formal training. And she
Hmm.
could draw and paint so well, it was shocking.
Hmm.
So my grandfather was so proud कि उनकी उन्होंने एक बड़ी सी portrait बनाई थी और painting थी. So he used
Wow.
to say that like till his last day in his dining room. वहाँ बैठते थे जब तो वहाँ हमेशा लगी होती थी. And he was so proud of it. So,
Mashallah.
so she really encouraged me. Because,
Hmm.
that's something she probably wanted to do, and she never could because being a Pakistani at that time and being a female, she got married, so she totally changed her career and everything. Uh,
Hmm.
so she used to write. She used to write afsanas. She was published. She had fans who used to read her work. So she left all of that, but then she replaced that with pursuing professorship in psychology. So she's
Hmm.
a professor of psychology all her life. She used to teach at Queen Mary College. And one of the reasons that I guess I was in the convent was because it was right next door, right?
Okay.
हाँ,
Yeah.
ठीक है. तो ये मैं ब्रीफली सबको इसलिए बता रही हूँ क्योंकि आप लोगों को एक चीज़ करनी ज़रूरी है एज ह्यूमन बीइंग्स, एज आर्टिस्ट्स, एज डिज़ाइनर्स, and that's self analysis. Always remember who you are and where you came from. And if you don't do that, then it's going to be more problematic later on in life when you have to make important life decisions. So,
Exactly.
so this is where I get my inspiration from. My mother, her art, her psychology. Now look at the connections, right? Because this is
Hmm.
exactly what I've been doing, and
Exactly.
and I never thought I would, but this is just how it's played out in my life. And
Hmm.
then this thirst for acquiring more knowledge, getting more skills.
Hmm.
So. Unfortunately, at that time, convent might have been the best school, but they had no art teachers, which are, we were
Oh.
talking about sometimes
Hmm.
teachers nahi hote. So,
Hmm. Teachers nahi hote.
art
Yeah.
offered in senior Cambridge, and everybody was going into science. So I went into science and I did well. And
Hmm.
uh, for a little while, I thought, well, okay, maybe I can just go to medical school like everyone else and not pursue art. But then I went to Kinnaird College after that,
Hmm.
after senior Cambridge, and they didn't have an art teacher either. So the other option was go to another college and pursue art there. But I thought I don't want to do that. So
Hmm.
instead of pursuing medicine, I thought, well, I'll just go into psychology because that's something that interests me too.
Hmm.
My father was also a psychologist and he changed his field. He went into government service.
Okay.
So थोड़ी देर उन्होंने भी पढ़ाया था, and both of my parents were at GC. They did their masters from there, and my father stood first. He got a gold medal, and
Mashallah.
he had it for the longest time. And then my mother was second, but they were not class fellows, like they were yeah आगे
Okay.
पीछे.
अच्छा ठीक है. Okay.
So I pursued psychology उस वक्त, ठीक है, and I was very good in English. Cambridge में, like I got the highest in English language and literature. So I chose the things that came naturally and easily to me, like aptitude wise, because being in a family of educators, I knew that it's best to choose something that comes easily to you, that you enjoy, because you have to go on from there. So I did my FA, and then NCA was there. And I said, well, I want to go and get admission in NCA, and I want to, become more skillful and see what I can do with my talent. Because even then, I kept drawing and painting and doing things, and I just couldn't stop. So my father said no, because you're a girl and you can't go to NCA. ये पुराने,
Okay.
right? Conservative.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
अब मैं सबको इसलिए भी बता रही हूँ, so that you understand that as females, and especially females in Pakistan, you will come across this throughout your life. Life,
Exactly.
it begins with an L, and limitations is a word which begins with an L. So life
Exactly.
with limitations is not possible. So you have to learn how to uh, find your way around those limitations so that you can achieve what you want to achieve. And that's what I've been doing throughout. So fine, I realize, yes, I'm a little too young. Yes, I'm only, a teenager at this time. और मुझे मेरी अम्मी ने, because she thought I was so brilliant, बहुत जल्दी स्कूल में डाल दिया था. So all my class fellows were older than me, you know. Um, so I was even younger than anybody else who would have gone to NC at that time. So then
ठीक.
I continued my BA, finished that, and then I went back again and I said, well, now I have to go and apply. I'm much older.
Destined to come to NCA. Exactly. That's why you didn't find any kind of art teachers before that.
I was like, I've waited so long, and look, I'm much older. I have a bachelor's, so the other option was obviously going for a master's in psychology and MSc, and going on from there. But this is just something जो कि मैं बता रही हूँ कि if you have an innate talent, and all of your students do, I'm sure, then you just have to do it. I mean,
True.
circumstances can stop you for a while, but you'll find your way around. So this
Exactly.
time I just went and I took the test, and I got in because I guess at that time it was either you were good enough or you weren't. वो फर्क टाइम से बहुत मुश्किल था उस टाइम पे. So
Absolutely.
so जब एडमिशन मुझे मिल गया, तो then obviously then there was no stopping me after that. So once I did go to NCA, then the question was, well, do I go into fine art? And I think other people have brought it up in your talks as well, fine art versus design. So I mean, I have to admit that I was born in a home where I was privileged, right? I was उस वक्त I didn't realize, या आप with age realize करते हो.
Exactly.
स्टूडेंट्स को भी यही सिखाती हूँ हमेशा कि आप अ, उसी वक्त अपनी लाइफ को साथ साथ एनालाइज करना शुरू करो. लुक अराउंड यू, सी if you're born in privilege, then how can you use that to help other people, to also help yourself become a better human being. So उस sense में I think I had everything in life, right? But the one thing I think no female in Pakistan can have is complete freedom to do whatever you want. And
Exactly.
I'm very happy to see young women, older women, everybody walking around wearing what they feel like wearing, wearing jeans. And उस समय में NCA में, I think I was one of the few people who used wear
Exactly. As
leggings, हाँ, जिनको
I
लोग
say.
tights कहते थे उस time पे, for some strange. So I used to wear these black leggings, and I had all these different kinds of clothes, and everybody used to look at me like, "Huh, ये क्या पहनती है?" So
You look beautiful even at that time. Yeah.
so I'm very happy to see how times have changed, right?
Exactly.
मीडिया नहीं था, सोशल मीडिया नहीं था, कोई एक्सपोजर नहीं था लोगों का.
Exposure नहीं था.
हाँ,
Exactly.
तो
Exposure.
उसमें फिर ये था कि once I decided that even though I have been born into privilege, it's not necessary that I will have this privilege throughout my life. And you have to keep this in mind because life is all about change. It can be
Exactly.
changed for the better, it can be changed for the worse, and it can go up and down throughout life.
Hmm.
So fine art was something I really wanted to pursue, art for the sake of art, and that's it. But
Hmm.
I realized that if I wanted a career later
Hmm.
on, and I did, and if I wanted to work and make a living, then उस टाइम पे फाइन आर्ट में इतना फ्यूचर नहीं था
नहीं
जितना
था।
अभी फिर भी है
अब तो
ऑल्दो मैं
बहुत हो गया।
हाँ पीपल स्टिल कंप्लेन उतना नहीं है लेकिन उस टाइम पे बिल्कुल ही नहीं
नहीं
था
था।
आर्यन नहीं तो हमारा क्लास फेलो था उस I mean wonderful that he's done so well and
Hmm.
we're so proud of him.
He was an inspiration for all of us at that time.
Aryan used to top in fine art. He was the best there. I went into design, so I used to top in design. So
Masha.
I used to top every year. So if you ask me how much I paid as in tuition, I don't know because वो scholarship मिलती थी ना.
Hmm.
Now वो merit based scholarship थी, but later on in life I realized that that scholarship should have been given to somebody who was deserving, जो कि pay नहीं कर. So
Hmm.
things that
और
one
सोशल इकोनॉमिक स्टेटस से जो आते थे
हाँ
उनमें बहुत लोग थे उस वक्त तो बहुत
हाँ
लोग थे जब हमारा टाइम था।
हाँ उनको उस वक्त भी मिलती थी लेकिन
Hmm.
if I could go back in time I would have
Hmm.
given I should have there should have been a way in which somebody could have asked me कि
Can
will you
pass it on to others, हाँ,
yeah
pass it on to the deserving people, yeah.
हाँ so I hope कि ऐसी चीजें लोग कर सकें अच्छा anyways so uh, got to fourth year and this is like a trip down memory lane for me too because
Hmm.
I've been moved on so much from there right
Hmm.
so thesis time I again topped in the class somewhere in between I got the NCA the President's Honor Award
Masha.
think उस वक्त जो भी प्राइम मिनिस्टर था वो आया था देने के लिए and it was a big deal and everything and
Hmm.
so that made my mom so proud as
Hmm.
an artist who could never do all of those things and I started working while I was in NCA and again I didn't need to but I wanted to
Hmm.
so I was basically, I think, I don't know how it happened. I was very good at photography, and
Oh,
photography was my minor, and my major was publicity design and graphic design. So उस
hmm.
time पे computers तो इतने थे नहीं,
नहीं,
develop हो रहे थे. So
हाँ,
mostly by hand, and then a little bit later on when we started using computers, the
92 93 में तो एनसीए में आया था पहली
हाँ
दफा।
हाँ so कोई इतना था नहीं anyway so I started doing professional photography I got approached by a number of people उस time पे अब this must be before everybody in this class was born except for me
Of course.
Zarin Gul. So this
I think
was
they were born in this century actually, not before that.
so हम ancient लोग हैं
We are prehistoric.
and we
Ancient
want to teach everybody some wisdom and some skills that will really take you far in life and adaptability because this is also not just a trip down memory lane but also how you adapt to changing environments which is very important for your own psychological well-being and also for the psychological well-being of an entire community
exactly.
um, so I basically did my thesis, and as I told you, then you well told everybody too that I got a distinction. I got the highest in design. So at that time, again, I had topped in the design department. But if you remember, at that time there was architecture, there was also fine art. So फाइन
Hmm.
आर्ट में जो भी हमारे साथ थी उसके जो मार्क्स थे वो मुझसे ज्यादा थे सो
अच्छा,
अवार्ड जो था एक कोई मिलता होता था आई डोंट रिमेम्बर उसका क्या राइट वो एक ही था सिर्फ so
अच्छा।
she got the award I didn't get the award and I couldn't care less because I always used to just work for myself I really didn't care what other people thought
Was
right
it Muniba? Was it Muniba?
yeah
Miniature artist?
probably
Yeah, she got it. Yeah.
because it
Chuktai War, I don't know what was that. Chuktai War or
no, no,
something.
it was like, yeah.
Yeah, Chuktai War. Definitely. I remember that she got that. Yeah.
And so Sir Bashir, if you remember, right, the miniature artist, जो कि उसके उस्ताद थे, he,
Start.
हाँ, he actually thought that that was not right and it was unfair. And I thought it was so great of him. I was never his student as such, right?
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
वो तो बीच में सिर्फ थोड़ा सा हमें उन्होंने पढ़ाया था. I wasn't his advisee. He created an award, a scholarship,
Hmm.
personally, and he gave me that scholarship, which was a certain amount of money. Uh,
Wow.
he did that publicly to kind of inform everybody and to let people know that you should have awards in for different departments, and
Wow. That's
have,
great.
because there's no way that you can compare a miniature artist with a design thesis, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And I still remember that because that made such a huge impression on me. Because again, going back to my upbringing from with my grandfather, these are the
Hmm.
kind of things he used to do. So I think,
Hmm. They were great. They were great teachers, actually.
है ना? हाँ,
Yeah,
बहुत
they were
हद
great teachers.
हाँ. So वहाँ पर फिर जब मैं थी एनसीए में शुरू में, my life could have gone totally different even then, because उस टाइम पे जब मैं फर्स्ट ईयर में आई थी, तो there was this trend that people wanted to go to the United States and study. So
Hmm.
first year में या first year ख़त्म करने के बाद, people used to apply to the US. They used to,
Hmm.
if they were admitted to an institution, they used to leave NCA. And so
Hmm.
I also thought maybe I can do that. So, you
Hmm.
know, inspire हो जाते हैं आप और लोगों को देख के. कोई था हमारा कोई सीनियर लड़का था, वो चला भी गया था और सब उसके बारे में बात करते थे कि वो चला गया. So I was like, okay, I can do this. Anybody else can do, I can do. So I went ahead and I applied to the California Institute of Arts at that time when I was in first
Okay.
year. Okay?
Hmm.
And I got in.
Hmm.
So now the thing was, well, what do I do? So
Hmm.
my father at that time again told me, he said, I'm not going to send you. You
Hmm.
have to, you know, going all alone.
मुआशरे की दीवार.
You know,
ये
but he
शादी
said,
नहीं हो सकती, आप बाहर नहीं जा सकती.
he said, नहीं. So my grandfather was alive at that time, and I asked him, and he said, कोई बात नहीं बेटा, अगर तुमने जाना है तो तुम जाओ. I'll fund your education, and you can go. So I was like, okay. But then I sat down and again self-analysis, right? I thought about it. Am I really old enough to go all the way to California by myself? And
Hmm.
I was still, what, 19 years old? I was like still in my teenage years when I joined,
Hmm.
right? So I decided not to. So I gave that up. And I think that was a good decision, because then I completed my BA from NCA. I acquired all those skills, which you can, by the way, only learn in NCA. Because
That's true.
it gives
That's
you these skills, but it also kind of gives you this character, which we all share. And
hmm.
and
Exactly.
this whole culture of Lahore and the inner city, and वो जो एक depth है, वो
Hmm.
आपको अगर मैं सीधी वेस्टर्न एजुकेशन के लिए चली जाती तो वो ना होती मेरे लिए.
Exactly.
ठीक है.
Exactly.
और एक चीज जो हम लोगों में बहुत अच्छी है कि we're all multilingual. Now I can go really deep into the theories of psychology and language and tell you about these things, but I'm not going to bore everyone. But the
Hmm.
gist of it is that being multilingual means that you are more developed in your cognition, in your thinking,
Exactly.
and this is a blessing that we all have कि हमें शुरू से इतनी सारी लैंग्वेजेस आती हैं. मतलब 6
Exactly.
लैंग्वेजेस मेरे नाना बोलते थे. वो पश्तो बोलते थे, वो पर्शियन बोलते थे, वो सराइकी बोलते थे, उर्दू,
Hmm.
इंग्लिश, राइट. My
Hmm.
father could also speak French, and he could learn a language. कहीं जाते थे वहाँ से जो जो लैंग्वेज सुनते थे सीख के वापस आ जाते थे. So he
So you
went
had
to
a range of linguistic capital with you as well.
yeah, yeah. So, you know, so
Others.
all of this, you have to absorb it and you have to see what you can do with it. But also, even if you're not consciously aware of these things, they will
Hmm.
affect, right? They will affect you, and they will affect your personality, your personal growth, and also your career choices and
Hmm.
how you perform in college, outside of college.
Hmm.
So after NCA, then I was offered a job in advertising in Lahore by one of the jurors because they were so impressed with my work and they said, come and work for us. I don't know
Okay.
how things are now, but they used to pay almost next to nothing. So
I remember that. It was 3,000 rupees or something like that at that time.
with me,
As,
I think
as far
maybe
as I remember.
yeah, more than that because वो बहुत शर्मिंदा थे कि आपके लिए तो ये पॉकेट मनी है कि नहीं जी मेरे लिए तो ये पॉकेट मनी भी नहीं है so I'm actually the love of profession right
Exactly, exactly.
no
Because I remember at that time, designers used to get 3,000 rupees or 35, and they used to say, that's a lot of money that we are getting.
even at that time it was not a lot of money and I used to feel sorry for the people who actually needed the money who were working there for that much right so while I was there working as a graphic designer initially in advertising I was asked to come and teach at NCA so for a while I was working in advertising and I was also teaching design at NCA so I used to teach third year design and that was something that I enjoyed doing, and I realized that I really liked teaching as well. So now I loved psychology and I loved English literature, and because आप लोग भी as students must have been going through this, that, there must be multiple disciplines that you're good at, and there must be multiple things that you like doing. So now came in teaching. So I really, really liked teaching. And at that time, I thought that I should probably continue. And there was a time when, they were interviewing and आपको पता है NCA में they tell you कि आप interview करो permanent job के लिए. वो आपको interview करते हैं. So I would have gone ahead and I think RM Naeem at that time was also applying
Okay.
at that time with me for a permanent position क्योंकि वो
Okay.
government देनी होती है, right? So and वो डिले हो गई वो डिले इस तरह हो गई कि एज यूजुअल कुछ हो गया एंड दे सेड कि हम अभी हायर नहीं कर रहे तो हम दोबारा करेंगे सो यू हैव
ठीक
टू वेट तो जो वेटिंग का पीरियड था while I was teaching there I thought well isn't this the right time to now go and study abroad I think now I'm finally mature enough and I can take it so at that time then since I was so much into communication and advertising and PR then I decided that I should pursue that further. So then I went to get a master's degree in communication arts.
Okay.
Right, it's communication arts at the New York Institute of Technology, and at that time, New York Institute of Technology was only New York based. So my campus was in Manhattan, right next to the Time Warner building, जहाँ पे CNN headquartered. So
ठीक है.
it was a wonderful location on the Upper West Side, and I just fell in love with New York as soon as I landed there. And the streets are not paved with gold. It's like believe के पता नहीं क्या हो जाएगा जाके. But just
Exactly.
like the atmosphere, the vibe of the city. Also, it's very culturally rich. Uh,
Exactly.
Wonderful city, and it's full of
Metropolitan kind of city. Yeah.
हाँ
Like
हाँ
people from many backgrounds come over and
हाँ बिल्कुल. And the
that's a good thing.
art scene is just amazing over there. That's
Exactly.
not California. So there's a huge difference between California and New York City.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's one of the differences that there's everything happening. Like the art is really creative.
Hmm.
Uh, Intellect is true intellect. Okay, so California is a little different. It's more commercial,
Hmm.
especially Valley. So वहाँ पर then I got the chance to work in media. So I did a number of things. There was a really nice television production that I helped with. Um, it was like not the Muppets, but kind of like the Muppets. So,
Okay.
uh, so यहाँ पे
Sesame Street kind of thing.
kind
Sesame
of
Street.
yeah, another
Hmm.
very popular one, but not Sesame Street itself. अभी भी आता है. But उस पे मैंने काम किया तो उस पे along with the creative aspect of television production and animation and all those things, I also did some marketing for them and marketing research and PR. So again, I was trying to use the environment to the best of my ability to really learn new skills. And then, along with that, there was this uh, art foundation that I worked with. And this foundation basically was promoting really creative, different kinds of artists in Soho, in the village. And we came up with this magazine, which was very different at that time. It was like a three-dimensional magazine. So it was sold in select bookstores, only in the artsy world, right? Not everywhere.
What's that 3D kind of magazine? I want to understand
So,
what is the difference between them?
it used to come in a box. ठीक है?
Okay.
Uh, and the box had literally 3D objects along with printed material. And
Wow.
the 3D objects that you had in there were made by artists locally in New York City. And it was just amazing. It was an amazing experience going to art galleries and
Wow.
trying to meet with the most craziest of artists, literally. जो छुपे हुए होते हैं अपने लॉफ्ट्स में और बेल भी नहीं लगाते ताकि उनको कोई डिस्टर्ब ना करे, तो नीचे से
अच्छा.
जाके आवाजें लगाती थी, हेलो, I'm here to collect your work.
Wow.
Literally ये हो रहा होता था.
Wow.
So I did that, and I was the assistant editor for that magazine. And then, in terms of really commercial work, I worked with this firm where I was doing graphic design. So I was their graphic designer. And so my experience with computers was coming, I would say, to or was getting developed while I was in New York City at that time, right? यहाँ पर इतना नहीं हुआ था, although I
सही
bought my
बात है.
first computer in Lahore before I left. वो वाले नहीं होते थे पुराने computers बिल्कुल जो
मुझे याद है.
थे, जिसमें ऐसे करो तो फिर वेट करते रहो कि अच्छा कब वो वाला. But वहाँ पे गई,
Exactly.
they had actually, really advanced, and we were way behind over here. So वहाँ पे then and I was at that time using Photoshop and stuff, which people will always be learning. It's a great, right? Adobe ने बहुत अच्छा काम.
Exactly. Exactly.
So वहाँ पे then I worked as a graphic designer on a number of their accounts. So NFL था, Electra Records थे, the big accounts, and I worked there. But a graphic designer usually just is behind the scenes. Computer के साथ बैठ के आप करते रहते हो.
Exactly.
Thing that they did was they saw that I was also into PR and advertising, and I could, make presentations and talk about my work and stuff. So they would take me along with them when they had to present to clients. So I could observe and I could see, and they would sometimes even ask me to say something, which was great.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of experience I had while I was doing my master's. So on the teaching side, I just couldn't give that up either. What I did was they had a learning center at NYT. And since I was good at English, they had a lot of international students who were having trouble and needed tutoring. So I became a tutor of English. That was my official title.
Oh.
And I used to teach classes every day. So we had a few American students as well, because अगर हम लोगों की national language उर्दू है तो हम सबको तो अच्छी तरह नहीं आती ना,
नहीं आती, नहीं आती.
writing and stuff, and even reading skills are very poor in the US.
Exactly. Their reading skills and writing skills are really poor,
हाँ,
actually.
हाँ,
Americans and like
हाँ,
even
है.
actors.
It's a fact, right? Because हम लोग किसी और तरह सीखते हैं और फिर they just take it
Yeah.
for
We are very disciplined in learning that languages, but they are not.
नहीं, but
They just speak slang language and they try to write and read in that slang language as well.
So I had some students who were like, Americans, and, they came to me to learn English, which was, for me at that time, a little funny. But, later on, later I realized that, it doesn't matter where you come from. If you're good at something,
Exactly.
you can do anything. So I finished my master's. This was like now my first master's, right? And then I started my own design studio. So it was called Origin, and I did some stuff over there. And I had my office here in Lahore. So that also gave me a good chance to, visit my parents, live with them, and, spend time with them and stuff. So, but that wasn't enough because of एक चीज मैंने कर ली उसको मैंने master कर लिया and even my studio I was doing quite well with for example with my photography design अलग अभी है with my photography I had I don't know people just loved my black and white photography it was up in Zenwa उसको हम कहते थे restaurant remember Shinwa
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
so
remember that.
I think Azmul Haq और उसकी वाइफ ने खोला हुआ था
Exactly.
and
We
so
did one exhibition over there as well, where our work
you
was
did
also sold.
ah
Yeah,
super
once.
true.
With
So my
Samira and some other artists.
yeah so my work was like permanently on display they gave me a whole assignment of black and white photography and what I did was मैंने उसको दो चीज़ों में divide किया एक मैंने NCA में ही जो हमारे fellow students थे उनकी मैंने with their permission of course पिक्चर्स लेके और उनको enlarge करके और तब हम मैन्युअली करते थे सब कुछ ये डिजिटल नहीं होता था
Exactly.
उनको मैं
Exactly.
और हम डेवलप भी खुद ही करते थे और प्रिंट भी खुद ही करते थे ये सारी स्किल्स हमें एनसीए ने सिखाई थी
इनसे
सो
भी आए थे बिल्कुल.
हाँ सो वो स्किल्स जो है मेरे बाद में बहुत काम आई बिकॉज जब मैं अपना ये मास्टर्स कर रही थी एट एनवाईटी तो दे वर शॉक्ड दैट आई कुड एक्चुअली जस्ट गो इनटू द डार्क रूम एंड आई कुड डू एवरीथिंग and I could even, come up with more creative ways of doing prints and stuff. So
Exactly.
that is something that only you can learn from here because West में तो आस्ता आस्ता ये manual चीजें बिल्कुल ही खत्म हो गई हैं.
खत्म हो रही है.
And these are skills that they're running after. वो बहुत creative और बहुत arty चीज है कि आप खुद कर रहे हो कोई चीज. So
Exactly.
I had people coming to me like Atika Odo और अब उस जमाने में बड़े जो भी लोग थे जो जाने पहचाने like from all kinds of fields. Tina Khar was more of a politician than so different people I actually captured through my lens because they wanted that kind of deep creative kind of portraits and stuff and different. So in terms of design, I had very good clients. So I was doing well. But again, I thought, well, okay, fine, I've done this. Let's move on and see how else I can improve myself. What else can I learn? So almost like I don't know अगर किसी ने I'm sure देखी होगी Matilda देखी है Matilda the movie. वो बच्ची है.
आप लोगों ने?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
हाँ. So just imagine Matilda who just wants to keep on learning and wants to just go to the library and get books. मतलब मेरा literally ये हाल था हमेशा से शुरू से. So जब मैंने इतना कर लिया तो then I thought, okay, so why don't I now pursue further education? So my professors at NYIT were always telling me, they said, well, you're too good to not pursue anything further. And at that time, and even today, the best institution in New York City, and it's always going to be the same, is Columbia University. It's an Ivy League, the oldest, and बहुत ज़्यादा clout है, बहुत मुश्किल है अंदर घुसना, मतलब, so they said, well, that's the right place for you. ठीक है, तुमने अगर बिल्कुल एक local commercial experience सीखना था, तो you're very good at that now. वो NYIT ने तुम्हें skills दे दी. It's a different kind of industry. So now you go and you, go to Columbia, and I was like, really? They said, yeah, just they will take you because we can see something, they'll be able to see it too. So I got into Columbia, and at that time when I told my parents, I never told them, I just applied and I got in. By that time I thought I was an adult, right? मैंने खुद कमाना शुरू कर दिया था सब कुछ. So independent, they allowed me that independence. So I just told them कि वो मैं apply किया उन्होंने मुझे admission दे दिया है and I have a scholarship. They've offered me a job. They had an institute for learning technologies and they still do at Columbia. And वहाँ पे they initially gave me a job as a research assistant and I was promoted to a research associate. Then they had these donor agency projects. तो उनका मुझे head बना दिया. So एक जो था gateway project था, which was engineering education की research थी basically, like how to improve it, especially for female students and for minorities, right? So उसमें I was heading it for Columbia University, and Columbia University was actually heading it for a number of other engineering schools across the US. And the whole thing was, how do we attract females to go into engineering? And this would be of interest to us because it was also computer engineering, right? वो सारा कुछ engineering school में था. And once they are admitted, how do we retain them? There was a very huge dropout rate.
Saadia, what was that year? I just want to know what was that time period that you're talking about? What was that year that you're talking about?
So this was the 90s, right? So
90s, yeah.
this was the late 90s, so I would say around 97, 98. This project continued for a while. It also continued into until 2000, right? Is tarah continued. It was like a 2-phase long-term project. So 5 years was phase 1, 5 years was the second phase. So my job was to go to all these different institutions, do focus groups, do interviews with faculty, with students, get the research together, do the statistical analyses, write it up, do a report, make recommendations on how to improve things. And it was funded by the National Science Foundation in the US, NSF, and also presented to NSF because they were funding it. तो ये सारा कुछ मैंने किया उनका वहाँ पे. तो the funny thing that I found was that Asians, especially Pakistanis and Indians included, right, were not considered minorities in the field of engineering. So one reason कि मैं आप लोगों को ये बता रही हूँ कि there is hope in the field and there is need in the field and there is recognition that Pakistanis do excel in computers, in technology, in engineering. वैसे मेरे ख्याल से तो they excel in everything and they can.
Yeah.
But West में ये concept उनको समझ आ गया है. इस हद तक. हाँ, ठीक है ना?
ऐसे.
हाँ, brains and beauty में भी excel करते हैं, हर चीज में करते हैं.
You are the example of that. Live example of that.
और मुझे शक्लें नहीं सबकी नजर आ रही हैं. I'm sure everybody is. ठीक है.
हमने उनको नजर से बचाने के लिए ऐसा किया हुआ है.
तो एनसीए में के बाद फिर मैंने ये टोटली इस तरह चेंज नहीं किया. तो आई वेंट इनटू रिसर्च एंड स्टफ बट इट वाज ऑलवेज आल्सो डिजाइन वर्क बिकॉज जब कहीं भी मैं जाती थी लाइक आईएलटी पे इंस्टीट्यूट फॉर लर्निंग टेक्नोलॉजीज में मैं जब ये काम कर रही थी तो दे न्यू दैट आई वाज वेरी गुड एट डिजाइन. तो वो जो भी डिजाइन वर्क होता था, ये लोगो बना दो, फलाना ये कर दो, वो सारा भी मैं ही कर देती होती थी. बिकॉज दे न्यू के मुझे देंगे, मैं उनको 5 मिनट में कुछ बना के दे दूंगी. तो ओके, ऑलराइट. तो एक और चीज वहां पे एक ऐसी हुई थी कि व्हेन आई गॉट एडमिटेड ड्यूरिंग माय फर्स्ट सेमेस्टर देयर, one of the biggest names in Teachers College, Columbia University, at that time was Dr. Ernest Z. Rothkopf. Z stands for Z, by the way. Okay? In the US, it's Z. So Ernie Rothkopf was a famous psychologist, very well known, and he saw my work, and then a few people recommended me as well. So he invited me to become his research assistant. And that was such an amazing experience for me because he was really, really much older, right? Unki age काफी ज़्यादा हो गई हुई थी. He was so wise and he knew so much more than I did. So under his mentorship, I learned so many things. And so he got me interested in psychology more and more and more, right? Because I spent so much time with him, assisting him with his research, with his writings and everything. So जब मैंने अपना मास्टर्स सेकंड वाला at Columbia University कर लिया, which was Master in Communication and Education. And it's an EDM, they call it. यहाँ पे MEd आप कहोगे. It takes double the time. MA 30 or so credits में हो जाता है. इसमें आपको minimum 60 credits चाहिए होते हैं because it's very intensive. And what happens is a lot of people just do the EDM and then they don't go on for a terminal degree or a PhD. And they just go and join the field. इतना ज़्यादा वो आपको सिखा देते हैं उसमें.
ठीक है.
तो अर्नी ने मुझे बहुत encourage किया and also other professors कि you know don't just leave it at an EDM, you have to continue with a doctorate. So by that time, you know, my parents had gotten used to the fact that, you know, yeah, she's just going to go on and on and on, like eyes of money. So I
And
used
Iron Name says that you girls have the opportunity. You always get the opportunity to continue your studies. We boys don't. And he was right.
So, you know, they said कि apply करो उसमें PhD program में, and this time go for psychology. And by that time, I was so interested because I was doing all this research already with Ernie Rothkopf that I said, yes, I'll go ahead with it. So I got into their doctoral program. And by that time, I had also started assisting with some teaching courses. So the teaching was also continuing. And what happened then was 9/11, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I was visiting here.
One.
हाँ, it happened to everyone. Like, you know, just like आजकल एक अजीब सा global event है, वो भी एक created सा फजूल सा global event था, which
Exactly.
negatively affected everyone. So what happened was I had come to the US with my husband at that time, and we got stuck here. So we're both US citizens, but we were kind of, because of the circumstances and everything, and many other things that were happening, we got stuck in Lahore for a while.
Okay.
So my education at that time then came to a complete halt because of that.
Okay.
And so what happened was that I couldn't just sit around and wait forever कि मैं कब वापस जाऊंगी, मैं कब continue करूंगी. So at that time, I thought, okay, I'll do something here. And so when I started doing my photography again and stuff, that just wasn't fulfilling enough because now I had gone on a path which was more intellectual and more research oriented. And so I was invited to come over and visit with Sayyid Babar Ali. And he told me that he had this institution called the Ali Institute of Education.
Okay.
And he said, well, why don't you come and you know, teach these young women, mostly young women, but also it's co-ed, so there were also some men there as well.
Okay.
And it was basically started by people from the West, and it had a good curriculum. And it was meant to give skills to women who were coming from not very privileged backgrounds. But even if you were coming from a privileged background, you could go and get a diploma there. So I joined there initially as an assistant professor, became an associate professor, became a chair of 2 departments, finally the academic coordinator of, you know, handling all the departments there and stuff. And it was an interesting experience because the education that we were imparting to them was so good that actually everyone should have had access to it. They did not have a degree which was recognized, so I helped them develop their curriculum, and I helped them have their degree recognized. So now they have that. When I was there, I was the team leader for a research project that they had, and it was funded by CEDA from Canada.
Okay.
And it was basically to look at the curriculum in schools for language arts, for social studies, and to see what kind of biases the text had, like school curriculum, and
Exactly.
how they could be fixed in terms of gender, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and how we could basically teach human rights education or conflict resolution within schools, and
Mm-hmm.
also teach them more about इतनी तो यहाँ पे civil liberties नहीं है लेकिन फिर भी right
But you
concept.
were reflecting on that, what is happening, and how does that inform students' learning or whatever, and how it can be
Right,
addressed, something
right.
like that.
So it's like a pilot program. So वो सारा कुछ किया. Anyway, so then moving on from there, then things got better, and then I could finally go back to the US. And so then I completed my degree and then got my doctorate. And they invited me to then join the faculty as an assistant professor of psychology and education. So वहाँ पर I taught for 2 years or more, like full time. Full time का मतलब ये है कि 3-4 courses a semester, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of students. I taught online. अब तो हर एक को online करना पड़ रहा है. उस time पे online specialists होते हैं, हर कोई नहीं पढ़ा सकता था. So in that online environment, I thought it was really dull and boring for people. So I brought in virtual worlds. So that was an innovative thing I did. So यहाँ पर I don't know if people have access to things like Second Life or if they're using virtual worlds other than बस gaming के लिए थोड़ा बहुत and stuff.
I I don't think so. मैं कभी शायद गेमिंग में कर रहे हैं, शायद
हाँ
not for educational purposes.
हाँ. So multi-user environments को मैं लेके आई so that my students could make their own avatars. They could go into a virtual
No.
environment as avatars, and I could interact with them, give them different kinds of assignments to do. So what I found out, and I did a lot of research, and it's published as well. I wrote books on it. That my students learned much better when they went as avatars into these virtual environments than they would learn otherwise by just reading or even within a
That's
class.
very interesting idea, actually. Very,
It's
very interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
so a lot of research that I did, and I presented at different conferences and stuff, and so again and again with hundreds students से thousands में चले गए, मतलब इतनी ज़्यादा research उस पे की और इतने ज़्यादा statistics हैं that you can't deny it that it does make a difference. So usme a lot of research on memory and emotions, right? So for example, if I ask all of you right now to sit there and smile, right? Just smile with your teeth, right? It can not be a smile or okay, iski genuine hai, right? So doing the same thing with your avatar. So I found that when you control your avatar and you make your avatar smile, there is an association and a connection between you and the avatar because you're projecting yourself into the avatar. So that emotion that your avatar is supposed to feel, you ultimately start feeling yourself. So this is basically called embodied cognition. These are cognitive psychology की एक field है, एक branch है, और newer है सर. So again, all of these cutting edge things I could only do in the US or will be in one of the best institutions जहाँ पे ये
Of
सब
course. They have the resources and all
right.
the yeah.
But I would love to bring it here because I think
That
people
would be that would be lovely if
yeah.
we can do that kind of thing or experiment with that kind of thing.
Right. I mean, I'm sure most of you would love that. It's it's just mind-boggling. When you see it happen, you'll know immediately. Okay, wow, look at this.
स्टूडेंट्स आप में से किसी ने खेली हुई है ये गेम जिसमें अवतार प्ले करते हैं आप आपने अपने छोटे बहन भाई को तो देखा होगा कि ये चीजें करते हुए छोटी वाली एप्स पे बट जो और अवतार अब तो बहुत सी गेम्स आती हैं जैसे मेरा मेरा जो नेफ्यू और बाकी वो हर वक्त ये खेल रहे होते हैं वो तो पता नहीं किलिंग वाली गेम्स भी होती हैं जिसपे मुझे कई दफा बड़ा एतराज होता है कि क्रश करना और पता नहीं क्या कर रहे होते हैं बट इट्स वेरी
Yes,
इंटरेस्टिंग
ma'am.
थिंग टू
Excuse me, ma'am. I have
जी
played different. It's a simulation game. We have to create our avatar and then it moves around the place.
Exactly. Exactly.
Hmm.
आपने experience किया हुआ है ना किसी हद
Yes,
तक
ma'am.
उसको.
Yes, ma'am.
But we haven't used it. We have never used it in education. Like I haven't used it as in
Right.
educational technology.
So I want to specify that this is not really a gaming environment, right? What it is,
Okay.
it's simulation. It's a simulated environment. So it's a simulation
Hmm.
of the real world.
Hmm.
And the thing about, for example, something like Second Life is that it is actually created by the users.
Hmm.
So वो आपको
And you
tools
spend a lot of time with that? Do you spend a lot of time with that as a you create your avatar and spend hours and hours with that or days with that?
people do that. That's something else that I experimented with, which is like how much time do people actually spend with their avatars? Because
Hmm.
it's also an exploration in self-expression, self-identity, right? Uh,
Exactly.
you can choose any avatar. So another great thing about that is that it's not just an exploration, but you also develop a certain amount of empathy, right? Which is that you can place yourself in another person's shoes. So you can be anything or anyone and experience life through that role. So it's basically also role playing. Or you can be yourself. Your avatar can look exactly like you. You can change appearances. You can be a dog if you want, or a cat, or anything that you want, a robot, right? Or change genders, or do anything that you feel like doing. But within the class environment, it's usually people want to appear as themselves. So,
Hmm. Okay.
so
Hmm.
with that is something that I think would be wonderful if we can bring it
Wonderful.
here. Uh,
Especially, like we have a constraint on in terms of gender that they can't turn on their cameras while we are
ah,
talking. So they can use their avatars for that. Like they can
yeah,
project their personality through that. That would be wonderful to understand themselves in that way as well. That what is happening. So that is a very very. But do you need some kind of software for that or some kind of system for that to be arranged in your university or in your setting or whatever? Do you need that, or can you do it with any software with your computers or laptops?
if you want to build the environment yourself, it's quite time consuming. There are
Okay.
open source softwares that are available. For example, there's OpenSim. Um, or you can just go with something like Second Life, which
Mm-hmm.
basically is quite developed by now, and they have their own scripting language, LSL. And I find that most people can actually build objects very easily. Like, students could build objects out of it, and the feeling that they get of being creative within an environment, and creating permanent objects जो उस environment का part बन जाते हैं और लोग भी जाके देख सकते हैं. So that's something which is something
We
that.
can experiment with that in some other session.
Hmm.
Like in COVID times, especially, we are moving into a time where we will be living as a virtual people or whatever. Mostly, we will be living like that, and now somehow we are kind of pushed into that kind of thing as well because now we will be doing exhibitions online or even socializing online, so that will be also a part of it, that socializing in a classroom instead of like face to face, but in this way or whatever. So that would be a very very interesting thing to do uh,
Right.
as an experiment or as an workshop kind of format or whatever.
Hmm.
That would be
Hmm.
very interesting. I think we
So,
should do
so,
that.
so that's something that we're also doing at London Socrates in Silicon
Okay.
Valley. So,
Okay.
so let's say that from New York City, then if you want to do something which is innovative within the world of technology and education,
Hmm.
then Silicon Valley is the best place to be, right? So,
Okay.
so that's where I am. Well, half of the time, that's where I am, right? And that's what we're doing over there. One thing which is lacking in Silicon Valley is this coming together of education and
Hmm.
technology, and it's mostly commercial because it's all about,
Hmm.
a lot of people from Wall Street, from New York City went all the way there. तो वो अपने
Hmm.
सारा commercialism and materialism,
Hmm.
running after money,
Hmm.
which is also important, right? The economy has to run, but there is a dearth, there's a lack of educators and researchers. I mean,
Exactly.
people who have gone into UI research and user experience research as well, right?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
वो भी कोई as such नहीं हो रही, which is really
Hmm.
depth, which brings
There's
in
a gap in the literature for that. Yeah.
हाँ
Hmm.
बिल्कुल theories नहीं आती, किसी किसी को कुछ ही नहीं आता honestly. They're just making do, जल्दी 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 काम कर रहे हैं, जल्दी से सॉफ्टवेयर बना दो, उसमें ग्लिचेस हैं, रन नहीं कर रहा, कोई बात नहीं, नेक्स्ट वर्जन में ठीक कर देंगे, so
Hmm.
so they really need that. So usme then our team from Columbia University has started this research program where we are doing different kinds of projects. So with technology, for example, one project that I'm heading is Live, which is learning in virtual environments, and
Okay.
that basically looks at the kind of work that I was telling you about, right?
Hmm.
How you enhance your emotions, how can
Hmm.
you modify,
Hmm.
or how can you even induce emotions
Hmm.
through your avatars and their embodiment or their actions in virtual worlds, right? Your interaction with each other. So that's basically peer-to-peer learning, jisko kehte hain.
Hmm.
And then also, we're also looking at robotics. So we have a project in which we're looking at how we can learn through robots, how humans interact with robots, how do you react to them? Because with technology, mostly, the issue is that it develops so fast.
Exactly.
There's this technology anxiety that a lot of people feel because अभी तो ये मुझे आता था, अब तो ये change हो गया है, right?
I see it. I see it. Within one sound.
तो
Exactly.
वो जो है ना, of keeping up and not being anxious is also something where psychology comes in, and it's very important. And user interaction में तो all the students obviously know that psychology plays a huge role, right? So coming to the end of this whole long story, it became a really long, right? Is
Hmm.
that all of these things mesh together. So they don't
Exactly.
exist in isolation.
Hmm.
Psychology is something which is a part of everything because the world is composed of human beings. We have to communicate with each other. Anything that we do is for ourselves and other people. So,
Exactly.
art is a very important part of that. It's a
Hmm.
creative process, but it's also when you bring it into the field, you are communicating with other people. So, again, it's all a game of psychology.
Exactly.
And certain fields will manipulate that. The gaming world manipulates psychology a lot and sometimes unethically, right? ये बड़ी debate,
Exactly.
हाँ,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
बट आप एक एथिकल गेम डिजाइनर भी बन सकते हो, जो कि हम
Hmm.
हमारी जो सारी टेक्नोलॉजी हम डेवलप कर रहे हैं, हमने एप्स जो बना रहे हैं एंड एवरीथिंग, all of those are basically ethical designs where we don't collect any information from our users. We make sure that their privacy is
Okay.
completely maintained. We don't try to sell them anything. And
Hmm.
we basically provide them an educational experience जिसके end में वो कुछ learn करें. And make
Hmm.
ये नहीं कि वो बोरिंग तरीके से लर्न करें, like a lot of fun where you can have the same gaming environment but in a controlled manner so that it's
Hmm.
not going haywire, but कोई educated researchers ने, कोई लोगों ने with doctorates एक पूरी game design की हुई है, and then you bring in the experts who are good at designing games. I mean, I know coding, but one person can't do everything, right?
Hmm.
मतलब
Hmm.
मैंने तो सी प्लस प्लस उस टाइम पे सीखी थी जबकि अगेन आपके स्टूडेंट्स पैदा नहीं हुए हुए थे, राइट? उस टाइम पे
And
सी,
the making, maybe.
हाँ, उस टाइम पे सीखना बड़ा मुश्किल था, एवरीथिंग वाज डिफिकल्ट, राइट? सो ऑल्सो लेट्स से कि एक ऐप, अगर एक एग्जांपल मैं दे रही हूँ of just something that we've made more public. Many of our projects are developing right now, so that people are secretive in Silicon Valley while they're developing, right?
Hmm. Exactly.
So one of them is actually bringing in history from the subcontinent. So we're bringing in Mughal history, and this is a research that I've been doing for now many years, in which my subjects or now that we have games developing an app, the user is basically using an avatar, which is one of the Mughal emperors, right?
Oh, wow.
Uh,
Oh, okay.
so you literally put yourself in the shoes of the Mughal emperor Humayun,
Am I? Oh, अच्छा.
and you experience his life. Now उसकी life बहुत weird थी और बहुत upside down थी और उसमें बहुत
Exactly.
issues or problems थी. So the game or this environment is actually also making you experience how to problem solve. And one of the important things is, well, this is how history occurred. These are the problems he faced. If you were him, right, as the avatar, how would you react to these things? Would you choose A, B, C? Because that's what these scripts are all about, right? So उस
Exactly.
आप एक educational किस्म की आप air देते हो rather than just gameplay and just for fun. And how it works, because at the end, then you test them. You the users what they remember, and it is amazing. People
Wow.
who know nothing about Pakistan or India or history cannot even say Humayun properly, right? उनके लिए इतने foreign concepts हैं. They remember everything.
Oh,
You test,
अच्छा.
test them after a delay time period के बाद दोबारा बुला पूछो, they'll still remember everything.
So they increase their memorizing capacity, which is
It's not
brilliant.
memorized. हाँ, what happens is, see, जब हम memorize करते हैं ना, तो वो एक फर्क चीज है. You have a tendency to forget. These are like
ठीक है.
synaptic connections at the brain level जो form हो रही हैं. They are associations जो form हो रही हैं.
अच्छा, ठीक है.
तो ये associations जो हैं वो फिर permanent हो जाती हैं because these are
Exactly.
emotional memories. So, for example, one of the books that I've written is about emotional memories. People tend to remember much better if there's an emotion attached with a memory. And you might say, hey, but we're talking about strong emotions, right? So, strong positive.
You're right. Sadia, normally, Roxana, normally, like when we were at school or whatever, we used to memorize things. So we don't remember those things. But with the memory which we associate emotionally, we still remember that.
हाँ,
So it
बिल्कुल.
means, yeah. Yeah.
Bilkul, bilkul. So the reason I'm going through this, and my experience is so diverse. I hope that I can be of some help to your students. But what I'm trying to tell all of you is that it's okay to diversify. It's okay to try, because you'll find that all of them will come together. They always do,
Exactly.
right? So, for example, all of my education has brought me to a level right now where the National Science Foundation now, if they wanted to have a competition recently, जहाँ पे because it's a donor agency, उन्होंने funding करनी होती हैं. तो जो projects उनके पास आए थे, they asked me to look at those projects and help them decide which one was good enough to be funded, right? So this is the level that you can achieve. You can go even higher than this, where you can be reviewing for such a prestigious government organization. And all of this, I think, would not have been possible, honestly, if my mother had not encouraged me so much, my
Exactly.
grandfather had not encouraged me so much, uh,
Yeah.
and if I had also learned to say, or rather, I would say, convert a no into a yes. Because as we will always be told no at many stages in our lives, right?
Exactly.
कर सकते वो नहीं कर सकते. अभी आप लोग तो बहुत लकी हो बच्चों, हम लोगों को तो था कि साइकिल भी नहीं चला सकते थे अपने टाइम्स में. And it wasn't because my parents were conservative. It was because they were afraid कि अकेली लड़की जाएगी, लोग बहुत
Yeah.
बनते थे उस टाइम में,
Yeah.
तो हमारी
Yeah.
बेचारी बेटी को क्या होगा. हम फिर भी जाते थे. So
Yeah. Because when I was in eighth class, then my mother told me not to use bicycle anymore
हाँ,
because she was afraid that there were more men out there or whatever, and I could become unsafe. But before that, I was allowed to do that. Like in sixth and seventh class, I was, but at around eighth class, I was stopped from using cycle, and
yeah,
I really missed that thing always. And I wanted to do cycling in London afterwards, but I didn't do that. But somehow, you could do cycling now. over there. You pay over there, and then you can do that. But I still love cycling. I would love to do. I would love to use scooty and these things. But if that becomes like even in Pakistan, there are a few girls in Fatma Jinnah University who are riding these scooties. They
Right,
use
right.
scooties, yeah.
Yeah.
I've
You know,
seen many girls who are using that.
times have changed. Even
Yeah,
like, with I guess social media and itni zyada exposure, I've seen that people's attitudes have changed.
yeah.
Uh, I या फिर हम इतने बूढ़े हो गए हैं कि किसी को इंटरेस्ट नहीं है, ये भी हो सकता है.
नहीं, ये भी है कि यंगर लोगों के लिए अब पॉसिबिलिटीज ओपन हो गई क्योंकि लाइफस्टाइल चेंज हो रहे हैं.
हाँ,
अब आप जबरदस्ती के साथ कर नहीं सकते. एवरीबडी इज डूइंग दैट. यू हैव टू डू दैट
right, right.
बिकॉज इट्स नॉट बिकमिंग अ नॉर्म नाउ.
One thing that I did want to bring up is that this is great that a good thing has come out of this, which is कि virtually हम class hold कर सकते हैं या virtually हम आपस में बात कर सकते हैं, right? But these are very, very strange odd times, and one of the awful results of this is that there's a lot of stress, and uh, I don't know when people will start acknowledging this. A number of people are, but this is leading to PTSD in people. Okay?
Okay. What is that?
It's a post-traumatic stress disorder, and
Hmm.
PTSD is something that I have researched and written about in one of my books. And I'll send you the link, and you can all go and
Yeah, definitely, please.
ठीक है ना? And
Yeah,
all your students are most welcome to get in touch with me later on if they have any
yeah,
questions on anything.
definitely.
I'm here for them. And that basically happens when there's a stressful event in your life, and that causes a lot of anxiety. And you may not realize at that time, but that anxiety does not leave you. And the fear and the lack of control that one feels stays with you. So
Okay.
if you don't address that and if you don't treat that, that can become permanent and it can be very debilitating and keeps getting worse. So oftentimes you'll find कि war veterans के बारे में बात करते हैं कि उनको post traumatic stress हुआ हुआ है. But nowadays, the kind of life that we're seeing in everyday life, where people are stuck at home, there are people who are losing their jobs. There are people who have no homes, by the way, and we're all privileged, so we don't think about them. जिनको जब हम बड़े शान से बैठ के सब कहते हैं stay at home, तो हम ये नहीं सोचते कि उनके पास homes नहीं हैं, वो कहाँ, right? It is extremely stressful for people right now, and the lack of control is causing this problem, right? So, usme, all of us need to be vigilant uh, about ourselves, about our friends and loved ones around us, and make sure कि हम एक दूसरे को वो cushioning or support दें, which is required. And I think you
Exactly.
all are very lucky that you have a wonderful professor in Zarin Gul, because
They are wonderful students as well, and we are wonderful guests like you as well. I think they must have gone through stress and distress during this time. कोई ऐसा बात करना चाहता है कोई कि वो किस किस्म की स्ट्रेस से गुजरा हो, ये जो आप लॉकडाउन हो गए हैं घर में और विजिट नहीं कर सकते यूनिवर्सिटी को. ऐसा भी हुआ है कि हमसे मिल नहीं सकते, कई दफा हम भी मना कर देते हैं. कि ऐसा कोई फील हो. फिर दूसरा डेथ्स हुई हैं कई फैमिलीज में, अपने
that
फ्रेंड्स
is
की फैमिलीज में. और फिर एक फियर, फिर जैसे अभी हो गया कि म्यूटेटेड हो गया है कोविड, और ज्यादा फियर फैल रहा है. मतलब वो भी एक जो कि अगर पता नहीं एग्जिस्ट करे या ना करे फिर भी आप तक पहुंचता ही नहीं, बट स्टिल इट मेक्स यू फ्राइटेंड और स्ट्रेस खाम खा की शुरू हो जाएगी. ऐसा कुछ हुआ है जो आप में से कोई शेयर करना चाहता है? अभी सोच रहे हैं कि क्या स्ट्रेस.
अच्छा आप लोग भी तक सोच लो, इट्स ओके. और
या
and
मैम
honestly,
इट वाज लाइक 3 months जब हो गए थे हमें लॉकडाउन हुए हुए, तो आई वाज लाइक पैनिकिंग कि यार मुझे बाहर जाना है, प्लीज खोलो दरवाजे, कुछ हो रहा है. तो आई वाज लाइक मैसेजिंग माय फ्रेंड्स कि यार हम कब मिलेंगे, इट्स लाइक आई एम मिसिंग यू गाइस, और सॉर्ट ऑफ थिंग. बट आई वाज आउट ऑफ कंट्रोल और मुझे कुछ समझ नहीं आ रही थी, चिड़चिड़ी सी हो जाती थी और इस तरह के. मामा मुझे बाहर जाना है यार, प्लीज थोड़ा सा बाहर जाने दे मुझे, एटलीस्ट आप मुझे सिर्फ बाहर दुकान तक जाने दे, बट लेट मी गो. So it was after 3 months of lockdown, and I was like still मतलब हम बिल्कुल ही बंद हो गए थे इधर घर में बिल्कुल भी आजकल तो कुछ बाहर जा रहे हैं, लेकिन जब टोटली जब हम लोग लॉकडाउन में चले गए थे, दैट वाज द टाइम आई फेल्ट दैट.
Hmm. That's completely understandable. So, Bete, how do you feel now? Do you feel better?
Yes. It's like
Good.
my,
Hmm.
my friends are like my family. It's sort of a connection है, and I really wanted to like मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगता है लोगों से communicate करना, उनसे मिलना, नए friends बनाना. तो अगर मैं ये काम नहीं करूँ ना, it's like something is missing in my life sort of thing होती है. लेकिन अभी right now the situation is well, तो I'm okay. Yes, I have
Hmm.
hope.
Hmm. And you should keep in touch with each other. FaceTime करो, इसी तरह जो भी आपके पास हैं apps available हैं एक दूसरे से बात करने के लिए. WhatsApp करो, सब लोग करते हैं आजकल, right? फ्रेंड्स के साथ अपना कम्युनिकेशन रखो और पैनिक मत करो. चीज़ें ठीक हो जाएंगी. हमारे पेरेंट्स के टाइम में वो बताते थे प्लेग फैल गई थी, दैट्स मच वर्स, बिलीव मी, राइट?
Yeah.
तो इस चीज़ें, दिस इज हार्डली एनीथिंग, इट्स नॉट इवन एबोला, ये सब चली जाएगी. बट इट्स काइंड ऑफ डिस्टर्बिंग फॉर एवरीवन बिकॉज पीपल्स फैमिली मेंबर्स हैव पास्ड अवे बिकॉज ऑफ इट,
Yeah.
राइट? So it's that kind of a time where you have to provide support to each other and make sure that all of you are well. Like if your friends are like your family, then talk to each other. But एक चीज है fear mongering, उसको आप encourage करो कि आप सब लोग avoid करो. बिकॉज कई दफा ये होता है कि एज अ ग्रुप थिंक शुरू हो जाती है, उसमें सब लोग, जैसे नहीं होता अगर एक चीखें मारनी शुरू कर देगा डर के मारे तो सब मारने
Yes.
शुरू, राइट? हिस्टीरिया, वो जो हिस्टीरिया है ना, उसको अवॉइड करने की कोशिश करो. जब भी कोई कर रहा हो तो उसको काम डाउन कराओ कि नहीं, दिस इज नॉट द एंड ऑफ द वर्ल्ड, थिंग्स विल बी फाइन. Yes, it's very sad, but things will be fine. We're all together. We'll get through this. If you have this belief and this confidence that things will get better, you will make them get better. Kabhi na kabhi.
चलो.
Hmm.
और बात
मैम
करना
एक इशू
जी.
जी
मैम एक इशू ये भी बहुत बड़ा जिसकी वजह से बहुत एंजाइटी और स्ट्रेस हुआ था, वो हमारे एजुकेशनल सिस्टम में एक इतना बड़ा चेंज आया था कि हमें ऑनलाइन जाना था ऑफलाइन से, और इतने मसले इंटरनेट के हमारे पिछले सेमेस्टर के फाइनल्स हो रहे थे और हमें प्रेजेंट करना था, हमारा गेम डिज़ाइन का प्रोजेक्ट था. और मैं सुबह उठी और पता नहीं मेरे कज़िन्स आए थे क्या, बहरहाल मेरे जो पीसी का वो नेट कैचिंग डिवाइस थी वो टूटी हुई थी. और इतनी एंजाइटी हुई कि किस तरह से अब मैं प्रेज़ेंट करूँगी, और इतने मसले आए. और फिर वो कंटिन्यू हुए सारे मेरे फाइनल्स में ही, तो वो बहुत अजीब टाइम था. लेकिन ये है कि मेरे फ्रेंड्स ने और मेरी क्लासमेट्स ने मुझे काम डाउन किया और कहा कि अच्छा कुछ नहीं होता, हो जाएगा. तो अब ये है कि अब थोड़ा आके अब नॉर्मलाइज़ हो गया, जैसे अब हम उस स्ट्रेस के साथ कोप कर लेते हैं कि अच्छा मैम से बात कर लेते हैं, और अब टीचर्स भी अंडरस्टैंड करते हैं कि अच्छा इस तरह के प्रॉब्लम्स आ रहे हैं, तो उनके साथ कैसे बच्चों को टाइम दे दें एक्स्ट्रा, या अब बेटर हो रहा है, अब हमें कोप करना आ गया उसके साथ. लेकिन उस टाइम पे वो बहुत स्ट्रेसफुल था.
I can understand totally because technology जो है, एक उसका given है that it will never work all the time, right? And
Yes, ma'am, especially when it is needed the most.
exactly. And it's literally, it happens to everybody. So उसमें I
एग्जैक्टली
think educators need to be more flexible. ये responsibility फिर students की नहीं है, ये educators की है कि आपको फिर वो extra time दें, और ताकि आप लोग जो हो ना, ये extra stress जो anxiety आपको cause हो रही है because of technology, वो आप avoid करो so that you can focus on what you're supposed to focus on, learning, right? So it's good that you're all providing support to each other because that will get you through this. And again, it's a learning curve. तो जब आप थोड़ा बहुत experience करोगे बार बार certain problems, then you kind of get used to them a little bit, and there's less stress.
कि स्टूडेंट्स मिस ही यही कर रहे थे, अपनी फ्रेंड्स से कडल करना, उनको हक करना, उनसे मिलना फ्रीली इस तरह से अपने टाइम स्पेंड करना यूनिवर्सिटी कैंपसेस पे. वो मतलब वो एक और ही दुनिया होती है बच्चों की. हमें तो याद है हम भी घर में रहना पसंद नहीं करते थे.
और मैम डिस्कशंस भी वर्चुअली उतनी ज़्यादा अच्छे से नहीं हो पाती हैं जितनी आप लाइव कर सकते हो कोई डिस्कशन.
That's
एग्जैक्टली
स्पेशली जब मुझे अरूज आपका सिर्फ ए नजर आ रहा है, राइट? अगर मुझे शक आपको नजर आ रही हूँ, राइट?
हाँ,
Yes,
रोज को
ma'am.
तो नजर
Yeah.
अच्छा देखो, एक ये स्ट्रेसेस हैं, देन यू नो लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल स्ट्रेस है प्रोफेशनली, ठीक है? एक एंजाइटी होती है कि अब मैंने ग्रेजुएट करना है, नाउ आई हैव टू फाइंड अ जॉब। सो हम लोगों की यहाँ पे बड़ी अच्छी कुशनिंग होती है एट होम, एटलीस्ट वी नो दैट वी हैव फैमिलीज एंड पेरेंट्स। वेस्ट में वो चीज़ें नहीं हैं लोगों के पास, दे रियली नीड टू यू नो फाइंड एम्प्लॉयमेंट एज सून एज दे ग्रेजुएट. Otherwise, how will they support themselves? So there's some very great, good things within our culture which we should appreciate and celebrate. Certain professions must be so stressful. My father was IG Punjab, and he probably had like the most stressful job. But
correctly.
my mamu, my mother's first cousin, she didn't have any brothers or sisters, so he was like a brother. And our mamu, हम हमेशा उनको शम्स मामू ही कहते थे. He used to head ISI. So imagine कि उनका stress level क्या होगा, right? So we are all given a certain kind of life, and the stress comes with that. So our aim has to be how to deal with it, how to keep ourselves calm. And it's not easy, it's not at all easy, but you can learn to do it. And it's very important to have a circle of friends around you. Sometimes friends will cause you stress, I'm sure.
Yes,
We
ma'am.
all,
Yes, ma'am.
right? So you also have to know who to be more friendly with, who to avoid, right? Now these are all things that you need for your psychological well-being. So जो भी आपको positive अच्छा feel कराएगा, उसके साथ आप ज़्यादा close हो, आप hang out करो. जो आपको नहीं कराएगा, आप उससे ज़रा से distant रहो. So these are some of the things that you have to go through life to find out. One thing that I would advise all students, and I remember हमारे भी बहुत जो अच्छे वाले teachers थे, हमें ये advice करते थे उस time पे, but नहीं समझ आती. Your parents mostly want the best for you. They are not that old. Mostly यहाँ पे लोगों की बहुत जल्दी शादियाँ होती हैं. So they are maybe 20 years older than you, only 25, something like that, right? Maybe 30 years. So जिनको हम समझते हैं कि वो बहुत बूढ़े हैं, बड़े हैं, बहुत उनको अकल है, उनको इतनी अकल नहीं होती सारे वक्त. आप सोचो ना कि अगर हम एक सर्टेन एज पे पहुंच गए हैं, मैं और जरीन गुल आपको अपनी एज नहीं बताएंगे, बट इफ एज, राइट, अगर हमारे बच्चे होंगे वो आपकी एज के होंगे, राइट जरीन? ठीक है,
बिल्कुल,
हम
बल्कि इनसे भी शायद बड़े हों.
हाँ एग्जैक्ट. हम जो है, हम आपको अपने एक्सपीरियंसेस के थ्रू जो कुछ हमने एक्सपीरियंस किया आपको एडवाइस करेंगे, राइट? नाउ आई हैव अ लॉट ऑफ एक्सपीरियंस, सो आई एम नॉट showing off when I say that when I give you an advice, it's probably going to work or it's good advice for you. But imagine a mother who's not very experienced in life, ज़्यादातर घर में लाइफ स्पेंड की है, इज़ वेरी वेल मीनिंग, वेरी लविंग, बट वो आपको सर्टन चीज़ों से अगर कोई रोके, तो then you also have to make these judgments that I've made, for example, in life, right? If somebody says no, don't go to NCA, I'm like, well, why not? If somebody says, well, yeah, you can go and study abroad, and I'm thinking, well, maybe not right now, I think I'm too young, मैं कैलिफोर्निया जैसी जगह पे जाऊंगी अकेली, वहां जाके मैं गाड़ी चलाऊंगी, वो भी लेफ्ट हैंड ड्राइव, ऑल ऑफ अ सडन थिंग्स,
Exactly.
living on my own. How will I survive? So you have to make these decisions in life, but you have to develop certain critical thinking skills, which is that you have to be able to make these judgments कि ये चीज़ ठीक है, ये चीज़ ठीक नहीं है. Now, given that you also have limited experience in life right now, as students, as young people, you probably will not be able to make right decisions until and unless you ask other people. You don't have to follow what they're saying. Ask other people for their opinion and see what other people have done. Learn from other people's experience, their mistakes, and also their achievements. So, one of the reasons your professor is kind enough to invite people to talk to you guys is so that you can learn from other people's experience. So I haven't been able to share most of my experiences because this is limited and I have too many, right? And too diverse and in too many countries all over the globe. But this is something that you can really benefit from. जो भी आपको कोई एडवाइस देता है उसको आप बिन में मत फेंक दो बगैर सोचे समझे. हर चीज़ को आप एक कंपार्टमेंट में डालो और फिर उनको आप एनालाइज करो कि ये चीज़ करनी है, ये चीज़ नहीं करनी है. And make these informed decisions throughout life. And if you make a mistake, it's okay.
Doesn't matter.
हाँ.
Exactly.
Because life will work out for you and you can fix things. Maybe not 100%, but to a certain percent, and you can move on. So what I'm trying to tell you is that there are lots of opportunities in life for females, for women. You will have limitations. Sometimes you will have to accept certain limitations, right? I wouldn't go alone out at night in a dangerous environment, right? Because I'm female, but maybe a boy will be or a guy will be able to go, which is fine. So ये सारी चीजें देख के आप अपनी decisions make करो, and sky is the limit if you keep these limitations in mind, right?
Exactly.
And there is hope in life. There's hope even during COVID times. There's always going to be hope. Because the good thing is that time moves on. It just keeps going forward. So प्रॉब्लम सॉल्विंग स्किल्स जो हैं वो भी एक प्रॉब्लम सॉल्विंग एक मेजर फील्ड ऑफ स्टडी है इन साइकोलॉजी. सो उसमें आप ये देखते हो बिकॉज आप लोग विजुअल आर्टिस्ट हो और आप ये सारी चीज़ें सोचते हो. थिंक ऑफ लाइफ एज फॉर एग्जांपल अ कैनवस और अ प्रॉब्लम स्पेस. ठीक है, वो जो प्रॉब्लम स्पेस है आपकी उसमें इमेजिन कि आपने एक गोल सेट करना है. दैट इज़ योर मेन गोल इन लाइफ. सो राइट नाउ आप सबका अलग अलग गोल होगा, जरूरी नहीं कि हर एक का एक हो. वो आपका गोल है. नाउ सी वेयर यू आर. सो इफ द गोल इज राइट हेयर एंड यू आर वे अवे फ्रॉम द गोल, हाउ विल यू गेट टू दैट गोल? देयर इज नो वे दैट यू कैन जस्ट हिल क्लाइम ऑल द वे अप. So you have to set sub goals in life. If I have to achieve this, how do I get from A to Z? I have to go from A to B to C. किस तरह आपने वो अपना पूरा एक प्लान करना है. And that's also visualizing things. How will you visualize your life? How will you visualize your mental well-being during that? And how do you visualize how other people think? Because without knowing how other people think, you will not be able to do anything that makes a difference in life, professionally or personally. And now I'm going to stop talking so that if you have questions, you can ask me, right?
जी, कुछ पूछना चाहते हैं?
या कि बहुत ज्यादा मैंने तकरीरें करती हैं.
नहीं, सोच रहा हूँ क्या क्या किया है उसके मुताबिक.
हाँ, जो कोई सवाल पूछने हैं वो पूछो आप जरूर.
मुझे एक और चीज भी लग रही थी सानिया कि यू वर टॉकिंग अबाउट ना कि कुछ गेम जो अभी मैं देखती हूँ बच्चों की भी ना जिसमें वो ब्लड निकल रहा है, क्रश कर रहे हैं, मुझे वो तो एथिकली जो रॉन्ग लगती है बच्चों के लिए भी. वो दूसरा मुझे लगता है कि इन टर्म्स ऑफ जेंडर भी कम है गेम्स. मुझे लगता है कि उस पर भी काम, क्योंकि आपको अपने आइडेंटिफिकेशन या अपनी जो प्रेजेंस है विद इन सर्टेन सर्कमस्टांसेस कि आप किस तरह से गोल सेट करेंगे, आप उसको कैसे अचीव करेंगे, हर्डल को ओवरकम कैसे करेंगे. आई थिंक दैट इज मिसिंग ऑल्सो. तो लड़कियों का कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन बहुत जरूरी है, चाहे वो गेम हो चाहे ऐप डिजाइन है. ये बाकी बल्कि अभी किसी एक स्टूडेंट थी, उसकी हम ज्यूरी ले रहे थे, उसने बड़ा अच्छा अपना पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस को शी ट्रांसलेटेड दैट इनटू हर डिजाइन कि वो पर्सनली जो जो कर रही थी वो इन टर्म्स ऑफ जेंडर नहीं था, बट इन टर्म्स ऑफ जेंडर जो आपकी प्रॉब्लम्स है यू कैन इनकॉर्पोरेट दैट इनटू डिजाइन एज वेल. कि वहां पे जो वो बहुत अच्छा है. बहुत एरिया मिसिंग इसलिए क्योंकि लड़कियों की कमी है इस एरिया में अभी भी.
बहुत मिसिंग है. एंड आई थिंक सिलिकॉन वैली कंट्रीब्यूट्स अ लॉट टू दैट बिकॉज वहां पर फीमेल्स काफी कम है. It's because mostly there were all these men who went from Wall Street, right? वहाँ पे गलत काम कर रहे थे, बहुत सारे पकड़े गए, तो वो उन्होंने सोचा चलो हम कर देते हैं, तो अब हम वहाँ जाके पैसे बना लेते हैं. That's an all fact.
Exactly.
Right? हाँ.
Exactly.
तो उसमें you have this little boys club जो कि अब little नहीं रहे, बहुत बूढ़े boys भी हो गए, but they're all So उसमें उसको counteract करने का ये तरीका है that more women need to step forward.
Exactly.
And women need to stop competing with each other and get together and start their own companies. ये औरतों में tendency है because that's how we're brought up. We have to please. तो उसमें औरतें आपस में compete करना शुरू कर देती हैं for jobs जो और लोग provide कर रहे हैं. उसमें a lot of women can get together, start your own business, and hire more women. Just like for example, Pakistanis नहीं हैं ज़्यादा Silicon Valley. तो Indians बहुत ज़्यादा हैं.
Indians बहुत ज़्यादा हैं.
Nothing wrong with that, but Pakistanis क्यों नहीं हैं? Because for example, Indians की जो Tata है company, उसने वहाँ पे recruiting agency बनी हुई है. तो वो लेबर प्रोवाइड करती है, ह्यूमन रिसोर्सेज प्रोवाइड करती है. तो अगर वो मेजर बड़ी बड़ी कंपनीज को प्रोवाइड करें तो वो तो सिर्फ इंडियंस प्रोवाइड करेंगे.
इंडियंस प्रोवाइड करते हैं, एग्जैक्टली.
So no Pakistanis have actually thought of this or stepped forward or developed their industry to such a level that they can actually do something like that. So we have to start thinking bigger and not at such a small scale, and then we can do something so that your students can next go and work in Silicon Valley.
Exactly. क्योंकि अब तो मेरे ख्याल में आपको you don't have to be there physically. अगर आप virtually भी काम कर रहे हो तो they can work with research and other projects, जिसकी वजह से मेरे ख्याल में वहां से कुछ जैसे आप outsourcing research में भी कर दो या बाकी चीजों में, तो they can be involved in that as well. तो ये इनको बहुत काम है कि इवन कि ये अपनी थीसिस और उससे रिलेटेड भी चीजों को ले जा सकते हैं, चाहे उसी को थीसिस का पार्ट बना लें कि दे हैव डन रिसर्च इन दैट एरिया. जैसे अभी हम बात करते हैं अवतार्स वाली या कुछ और, इससे रिलेटेड अगर आप रिसर्च करते हैं या कोई थोड़ी बहुत भी कोई ऑब्जेक्ट्स के साथ प्ले करके देख लेते हैं और कुछ और चीजें करके देखते हैं, पर्सनली इन्वॉल्व होकर देख सकते हैं उसमें, तो दैट कैन बिकम देयर थीसिस एज वेल. और फिर ये रिसर्च ओरिएंटेड भी हो जाएगा और फिर वही बात है कि आप की प्रेजेंस शो हो जाएगी इसके बीच में. वही बात है कि वहाँ ये मसला है कि पाकिस्तानीज ने इतना वहां पर एक दूसरे को सपोर्ट नहीं करते. ये यूके में भी ये है, ये बाकी जगहों पे, लेकिन अगर आप सपोर्ट करना शुरू कर दें तो अब तो माशाल्लाह पाकिस्तान की तरफ बहुत कुछ मोड़ रहा है. और अब मतलब जैसे आप लोग सक्सेसफुल हो माशाल्लाह, बहुत लोग हमारे आर्टिस्ट और बाकी जितने भी हैं जो कि इंटरनेशनली भी काम कर रहे हैं बाकी, तो मेरे ख्याल में उनके साथ कनेक्ट होने का ये फायदा कि आपको पता चल रहा है कि यहाँ पे किस तरह की न्यू जनरेशन कैसी आ रही है, और फिर इन टर्म्स ऑफ जेंडर जो लड़कियों की यूनिवर्सिटी कैसे उनको बिल्ड कर रही है, तो ये तो माशाल्लाह स्किल्स में बहुत अच्छे होते हैं. तो दे कैन वर्क टुवर्ड्स दैट एज वेल कि वहां क्या हो रहा है उसके साथ कनेक्ट किया जाए. अगर ऐसी अपॉर्चुनिटीज हो तो सादिया आप हमें बता सकती हैं रिसर्च से रिलेटेड, या कभी आप इनको एंगेज करना चाहें तो ये आपके साथ कनेक्शन में रह सकते हैं बाकी. और कभी हम ऐसे एज ए यूनिवर्सिटी भी ऐसी चीज कर सकते हैं कि इस तरह की कुछ, मेरे ख्याल में वो बहुत इम्पैक्टफुल होगी और दोनों के लिए यूजफुल होगी, बाहर भी और यहाँ भी.
Absolutely. And like even अभी जो आपकी क्लास में जितने लोग हैं, आप लोगों को you're most welcome if you want to participate in what we're doing at London Socrates. If you want to contribute, if you have ideas, you would like to create an app. I think एक मैं वीडियो देख रही थी जिसमें आपके एक स्टूडेंट ने बहुत अच्छा क्वेश्चन पूछा था कि you have a good idea, how do you pitch it to somebody? Right?
Exactly.
So yeah, this is very a Western thing, a Western question, because हमारी इंडस्ट्री में this is one thing कि अगर आप कहते हैं अगर आप एलिवेटर में किसी के साथ घुसते हो तो आपके पास बस literally a few seconds हैं. How you want to pitch your idea to somebody, right?
Exactly.
तो आपको सेकंड, हाँ जी हम आपको दे देते हैं, ठीक है ना. तो ये जो सारी स्किल्स हैं ये आप ऑन द जॉब लर्न करते हो इन एन एनवायरनमेंट लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल इन सिलिकॉन वैली. सो ये आप लोगों के लिए एक अपॉर्चुनिटी है. You are most welcome to get in touch with me. Zarin, do share my contact.
ठीक है, ठीक है.
And if you want to do something which is related to whatever we're doing, or if you have some new ideas that you want to explore, you're most welcome to talk to me about it, and to Zarin Gul, and we can get together and involve you as well. And I think the virtual worlds will be wonderful if we can involve you guys.
That would be wonderful.
So we'll talk about that.
Inshallah. ठीक है. और इवन वो जो हम कह रहे हैं आइडिया, दैट कुड बी वी कैन अरेंज अ काइंड ऑफ वर्कशॉप एज वेल, जो इस किस्म की एजुकेशन टेक्नोलॉजी में यूज हो सकता है, या कोई और आइडिया जो आप कर सकते हो, या हमें आप अपनी तरफ से कुछ टिप्स दे सकते हो कि क्या करना चाहिए और किस लेवल पे जाने के लिए हमें, मतलब सिलिकॉन वैली का जो आपका एक्सपीरियंस है, वी कैन ड्रॉ ऑन दैट एज वेल, और लर्न कर सकते हैं हम उससे. और यहाँ पे तो बच्चे बहुत पोटेंशियल इनका होता है, और वही बात है कि आप तो एज ए मेंटोर भी इनके काम कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि दे वुड नो कि वहाँ वर्किंग होती कैसे है. और जैसे आपको पता है कि कमर्शलाइजेशन वाला क्या है, वही बात की मैं पूछना चाहती कि सिलिकॉन वैली में जैसे आपने खुद एड्रेस किया, यू एड्रेस दैट पर्सन एक्चुअली, कि जो न्यूयॉर्क की सिलिकॉन वैली है, जो कैलिफोर्निया की सिलिकॉन वैली है, इसमें क्या फर्क है. तो आपने वही कमर्शलाइजेशन एंड जो आर्ट ओरिएंटेड का जो मेन फर्क है वो बीच में बोला है कि ये चीज होती है, इससे फर्क पड़ता है बहुत ज्यादा. तो वही है कि आप जहाँ के लिए जा रहे हैं वहां पे हो सकता है आप सोच के कुछ जाएं और हो कुछ और रहा हो, तो फिर आपको पता होना चाहिए कि वहाँ क्या चीज डिमांड में है. तो यू हैव टू थिंक लाइक दैट.
अच्छा, एक शो होता था वहाँ पर, HBO आता था, आई थिंक इधर आता
हाँ,
आता
आता है, आता है.
सिलिकॉन वैली शो देखा है किसी ने? बहुत मजे का फनी शो है वो.
नहीं देखा, देखेंगे.
नहीं? अच्छा, अगर कभी कोई देख सकेगा तो उसमें आप देखेंगे कि सिलिकॉन वैली है क्या कैलिफोर्निया की.
हाँ, एग्जैक्टली. व्हाट इज एग्जैक्ट सिलिकॉन वैली?
इट्स बेसिकली द सबर्ब्स ऑफ सैन फ्रांसिस्को. ठीक है. सैन फ्रांसिस्को इज अ बिग सिटी, नॉट एज बिग एज न्यूयॉर्क सिटी. उसके सामने वो भी छोटा सा विलेज लगता है, लेकिन इट्स वन ऑफ द बिग सिटी. तो जो उसके सबर्ब्स हैं वो सारे डेवलप हुए हैं बिकॉज जब एक्सपेंसिव होती गई सिटी, तो लोगों ने सबर्ब्स में अपने ऑफिसेज खोलने शुरू कर दिए. तो स्टीव जॉब्स ने एप्पल शुरू किया, और उसने कुपर्टिनो में, जहाँ पर हम बेस्ड हैं, वहाँ पर उसने एप्पल के ऑफिसेज शुरू में बनाए. अब आहिस्ता आहिस्ता वो सारी जो रियल एस्टेट है वो एप्पल ओन करता है. तो अब आप सोचो कि वो कितनी ज्यादा उसकी वैल्यू शूट अप कर गई. ठीक है. इस तरह वो फैलती जा रही है, इन द सेंस के एक एरिया एक्सपेंसिव हो जाता है तो वही कंपनीज उसको अफोर्ड नहीं कर सकती, तो देन जैसे अच्छा हम जरा और आगे चले जाते हैं, यानी कि लाहौर गुजरा वाला चले जाते हैं.
एग्जैक्टली. रायवेंड जो था ऐसे ही रफी पीर ने वहां पे जो बड़ा सा सेटअप किया है, ये ऐसे ही है ना.
तो वो
एग्जैक्टली ऐसे.
इस तरह वो सारी जो है ना वो एक्सपैंड करती गई है. ठीक है ना. तो ये हुआ है. तो ये जो शो है वो एक्चुअली यू हैव अ पाकिस्तानी गाय, क्या नाम है, कुमैल नंजियानी, who plays an Indian. And why is he playing an Indian being a Pakistani? Because Pakistanis कम है जो firms hire कर रही हैं, Indians हैं. ठीक है. So ये शो देख के काबिल है. few people can do watch it because उसमें उन्होंने यही दिखाया है कि जब शुरू में लोग वहाँ जाते हैं तो वो क्या अजीब सी इन्वायरमेंट उनको लगती है, बिकॉज बिल्कुल सबर्बन है. उसमें इस तरह के नर्ड लड़के भरे हुए हैं जो कि ग्रुप्स में हैंग आउट करते हैं. क्या क्या उनको करना पड़ता है कि वो किसी तरह कोई एम्प्लॉयमेंट लें, क्या उनकी इश्यूज हैं वो सारी. सो वो एक बड़ी chaotic सी एनवायरनमेंट है जिसमें यू जस्ट हैव बिग कॉर्पोरेशंस एंड यू हैव देयर वर्कर्स, एंड मोस्टली द वर्कर्स आर कमिंग फ्रॉम अदर कंट्रीज, इमिग्रेंट्स हैं बहुत ज्यादा.
ठीक है.
तो उसमें इंडियंस बहुत ज़्यादा हैं, चाइनीज बहुत ज़्यादा हैं. सो एशियन कम्युनिटी में से बहुत ज़्यादा लोग हैं. पाकिस्तानी बहुत कम है. सो आप लोग घुसो किसी तरह. नो,
वो देखिए शो जरूर. हाँ, उसकी टिप्स देख ले.
उसके टिप्स.
स्टार्टिंग में वेरी गुड कनेक्शन ना, कि इंशाल्लाह जब भी कोई इस तरह की आपके पास चीजें आती हैं, तो आपको जब लगे कि पोटेंशियल है कि यहाँ के इस तरह के बच्चे जा सकते हैं इस तरह के स्किल्स में, तो आप उनको कनेक्ट कर सकते हैं या अपने साथ काम में ले सकते हैं. तो हो सकता है कि कई लोग बीच में इन्वॉल्व हो जाए रिसर्च इस चीज में, तो बहुत अच्छा एक्सपीरियंस होगा अगर आपको सिलिकॉन वैली का हो जाता है. तो इवन के उनके अपने सीवीज में इतना बड़ा ये वो आ जाएगा, एडअप हो जाएगा. ऐसे ही था जैसे हमने अपनी फिल्म्स भेजी या कुछ और, तो वो सीवी बहुत स्ट्रांग हो गया कि अगर आपका काम वहां जा सकता है तो इट मींस दैट यू आर केपेबल इनफ. अब तो अपने काम ही वर्चुअली करना है, और ज्यादातर तो अब ये पता है आउटसोर्सिंग भी होती है, तो दे कैन बी कनेक्टेड टू दीस रिसर्च.
हाँ एग्जैक्टली, वो यहाँ करे. कुछ बच्चों को शौक होता है यू नो कि उनका एक्सपीरियंस फिजिकली जाके वहाँ कुछ अरसे काम कर सकें.
बिल्कुल ऐसे भी होता है.
You
दे कैन
do
गेट द
have.
अपॉर्चुनिटी ना. बिल्कुल.
हाँ
बिल्कुल ऐसे ही है.
तो अपनी आप लोग जो स्किल्स इनकी डेवलप करा रहे हो, दीज आर एट पार विद द वेस्ट. ये मैं देख रही हूँ.
हाँ,
तो
माशाल्लाह.
very impressed with that, and I would love to see more work of theirs. So
ठीक
वो
है,
आप मेरे साथ शेयर करो, and
इंशाल्लाह.
हाँ, और आप लोग भी you don't get intimidated. I'm not that kind of a person. Zareen will she'll vouch for me. Uh, just feel free to get in touch with me, and
इंशाल्लाह.
कुछ भी हो, I'll do my best to help everybody out.
Thank you,
Exactly.
ma'am. Thank you so much.
You're most
Yeah. और कोई क्वेश्चन तो नहीं पूछना चाहते? Otherwise we can wind up the session. कोई क्वेश्चन है?
I don't think there are any questions, but I would like to say that it was a great session, literally.
आपकी आवाज थोड़ी कट रही है.
I'm saying it was a great session. We had fun listening to you guys.
Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
ठीक है.
Yes, ma'am. It
Very
really
different kind
opened
of
new
session.
doors to our mind.
जी अरूज, क्या बोल रहे हो बेटे?
Ma'am, I was saying that it opened new doors, um, new dimensions. अभी हम वर्चुअल रियलिटी के बारे में हमारी एक और कोर्स में हमारी मैम ने हमें पुश किया एक तरह से कि वो कॉमनवेल्थ ऑफ लर्निंग वाले कोर्सेज जो है ना वो स्पॉन्सर करें. तो उन्होंने हमें कहा कि आप वर्चुअल रियलिटी का कोर्स लें. तो वहाँ पे उसके फर्स्ट इंट्रो में उन्होंने बताया कि इसको साइकोलॉजी में रेशियल बायस ख़त्म करने के लिए भी यूज़ किया जा रहा है. कि वो
Absolutely.
यस मैम. तो बहुत हमें पहले इस तरह से बिल्कुल भी जब हम स्कूल में थे कुछ भी नहीं एक तरह से पता था, लेकिन अब इतना एक्सपोजर मिल रहा है और आर्ट्स की डिफरेंट फॉर्म्स के. इट इज़ नॉट मेरली पेंटिंग, नॉट मेरली ड्राइंग, इट इज़ समथिंग फॉर लाइफ. तो और मैम ज़रीन का हम बहुत जितना शुक्र अदा करें कम है कि वो हमारे लिए इस तरह सेशंस अरेंज करी हैं और इतने बड़े बड़े आर्टिस्ट के साथ, और हमारा इतना एक्सपोजर बढ़ रहा है. तो थैंक यू सो मच आप दोनों का.
Thank you for being a wonderful class and wonderful audience. And I know we don't have much time, so कोई भी questions जो आपके दिमाग में आते हैं, just feel free to let me know, let your professor know. And yes, you are very lucky to have such a wonderful professor. I agree with you.
Thank you so much. मुझे इसके ये जो सेशन से इनके स्टार्ट करने का मकसद ये था कि they should get exposure, कि वही बात है कि लिमिटेड नहीं है नॉलेज ऐसे कि आप जो स्किल सीख लिया दैट्स इनफ. आप लाइफ में कैसे इसको करते हैं, और फिर डिफरेंट जो रेंज ऑफ नॉलेज है, रेंज ऑफ डिसिप्लिन है, क्योंकि इंटरडिसिप्लिनरी वर्ड है ये. तो इसमें वो जो ओवरलैप करते हैं और फिर वो एक क्या फॉर्म लेते हैं, वही बात है जो आपने भी लास्ट में जो एक शक्ल लेते हैं वो मैटर करती है. और फिर लाइफ के साथ आप से कैसे कनेक्ट करते हैं, दैट एक्चुअली मैटर्स. और फिर ये लाइफ लॉन्ग लर्निंग है. दिस इज नॉट लिमिटेड टू स्किल्स एंड जस्ट विद इन द बाउंड्रीज ऑफ द यूनिवर्सिटी और व्हाटएवर. सो इसलिए जो है हम यही कर रहे हैं. और ये आपका तो सेशन बहुत ही अच्छा रहा इनके लिए, क्योंकि एक सिलिकॉन वैली का और यहाँ के पाकिस्तानी आर्टिस्ट को आप देखते हैं सब कुछ है, लेकिन वहाँ का जो जिनका एक्सपीरियंस है एंड देन वो जो साइकोलॉजी का पर्सपेक्टिव है और फिर वो जो लाइफ लॉन्ग लर्निंग है बाकी, तो दैट वाज रियली यूजफुल फॉर देम टू नो कि ये इतनी हम ब्रॉडर रेंज पे जाना चाहते हैं, एजुकेशन को हम इतनी ब्रॉडर रेंज पे समझना चाहते हैं, एंड द काइंड ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटीज दे कैन गेट थ्रू यू और आपके साथ कम्युनिकेट करने से या बाकी आगे चलने से. तो वो भी बहुत अच्छा. आप अपनी बुक्स का हमें जरूर लिंक शेयर कर देना और अपनी बुक्स का भी मेंशन कर देना, ताकि इफ दे गेट दैट अपॉर्चुनिटी दे कैन गेट दैट. और कई दफा हम लोग भी सजेस्ट करते हैं यूनिवर्सिटी को कि हमें ये बुक्स चाहिए, तो यू कैन सजेस्ट दैट एज वेल, मे बी दे विल बाय दैट, बाय दोस बुक्स. ये भी होता है, तो आप जरूर हमें उसके अंदर भी जरूर
दूंगी. एक हमारी चीज सिर्फ रह गई थी जो आपने मुझे शुरू में कहा था ज़रीन, that you wanted to talk more about the psychological aspect and the role of psychology in art, right? But that's now for another time. Because
exactly, हम उसका दोबारा कोई सेशन रख लेंगे. Exactly, क्योंकि वो बहुत लार्जर है. जैसे उसमें साइकोएनालिसिस की थेरीज भी हैं, बाकी तो आपने उससे ज्यादा इन डेप्थ पढ़ा होगा जाहिर है जब पीएचडी की है. अब आपके पीएचडी से रिलेटेड पूछ सकते हैं, बाकी वो कर सकते हैं. दैट वुड बी वेरी यूजफुल फॉर देम एज वेल. वो भी बहुत important हो सकता है. Thank you so much, Saadia, for being on our talk show, and it was lovely talking to you, and we learned a lot from you. So thank you so much, and
thank you for inviting.
Thank
you.
You're most welcome. Okay,
Lovely to
ji.
talk with all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Okay, ji. Hafiz.
Khuda Hafiz, everyone.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah
Allah
Hafiz.
Hafiz, ma'am. Allah Hafiz.
Khuda Hafiz.